right, we're back at it again. Buckle up and hunker down. It is the NFL Draft Watch pregame show here on October 25th, 2025. I am Ric Serritella, one half of the show, here to preview today's college football docket. We're going to highlight some marquee matchups. We're going to take a look at some key prospects. We're going to get into some draft analysis, little projections. If we do it every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern here on the All Access Football Network. We thank you so much for tuning in wherever you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Please smash that like button, hit subscribe. We're going to get into a lot of great NFL draft talk here on the NFL Draft Watch pregame show. And as I alluded to, I am one half of the show, but the true star of the show is our residential scout, former NFL, CFL, XFL scout. He's been with the UCLA Bruins, who we're going to talk about today. How exciting is that? He's also been a scout for the Cleveland Browns, as well as the St. Louis Rams. Of course, the original XFL, one of the few people to scout the NFL, XFL, and of course the CFL. Also a member of the CBS Today broadcast team, GM Junior, and a mentor over at Sports Management Worldwide for the football GM and scouting course. You can find out more information on that over at smww.com. He is Russell Lande, and he joins me from Chicago right now. What's happening, Russ?
What's going on, big timer? I don't know if I'd say the star of the show. I think that's an equine thing. I mean, you and I have been doing this both scouting for a long time.
Yeah, man. Well, I always love chopping it up with you each and every Saturday. It's my favorite day of the week. We got a lot of college football action to get into, and I know we've been kind of shining the spotlight on the SEC and the Big Ten the last couple of weeks. Let's talk a little Big 12, little rivalry game, Kansas State at Kansas. Russ, this one's going to be on TNT at noon Eastern time. What do you make of this matchup?
Well, firstly, I always, whenever I think Kansas State, forget the schools and how good they are. The rivalry is so intense over the years, but it always reminds me of one story I was told when I was at Kansas State scouting for the Browns. Their star, they had a lot of stars at the time. Coach Schneider had built them into a powerhouse, and they had NFL guy after NFL guy coming out. But they always told me the story. They got Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles, I believe, was Overland Park or one of these small cities right outside Kansas City. And this kid wanted to play for Kansas growing up, supposedly. And they were lukewarm at best in their recruiting of him, even though he was an everything superstar in high school. And what I was told was he took it as sort of an insult. And even though Kansas State was not a team he was like aiming to go to and was high on his list, supposedly as soon as Kansas sort of showed little interest, he just went to Kansas State just to prove it to Kansas that they made a mistake. So I thought it was sort of interesting that this guy who became a superstar in college and obviously played a decade in the NFL, he's sort of right at the heart of what this rivalry is all about. It's
great player. I think he came in at like 5'6" and 5/8 inches, if I remember correctly.
Well, I will tell you this: I was the person who measured him his senior year as a Blesto scout. Me and Greg Miller, who has since passed away, and I still remember him coming up to get measured, and we both were stunned at how small he looked. And he measured 5'0", 5'3", 181. And I'll tell you this: normally, and you and I have been doing this forever, when there's a short guy who's a star in college ball, when they walk out, usually they are ripped and shredded. He was in very good shape, but there was no like ripped up in Mr. America. He was just one of those guys that he's a freak of nature athlete, and he just looked like, hey, I'm in shape. I play basketball, but probably played he looked like that guy who plays every sport that keeps him in shape, but he's not like a 12-pack and all that. But you put a football in his hands, and he's got the 12-pack. He's Mr. America. It was unbelievable. I still remember measuring him, and I was like, oh, he's underneath because the NFL measuring charts back then, when you would go to the schools, they only went down to like 5'6". So you had to mark under it and then measure it from the ground because he was below the 5'6" mark. So
unbelievable.
Yeah. And he turned out okay.
Yeah. Great story. And since then, there's been a lot of Deuce Vaughn comparisons, right? And probably in this year's draft, Desmond Reed over at Pittsburgh is going to probably fit that same size dimension. But very good story there. Russell Lande, always on the scouting trails. We got Kansas State at Kansas. And let's take a look at Kansas State and their prospects first up. Russ, who do you got?
Well, firstly, I got to start, regardless of who the best one is, you have to start with Cody Stufflebean. I mean, is there a better name in college football than that? I mean, He's not a highly regarded prospect. He's not a guy that NFL teams are saying is a day 1 or 2 guy, but he's a really competitive defensive end, plays like his hair's on fire. And he, along with their nose tackle, Damian Ialo, who's sort of that traditional undersized guy at just over 6 feet, 300 pounds, they have done a good job of helping that defensive line, like sort of control things. They're not a dominant line, but those 2 players have been really good for them, helping that defense at least be able to hang in there. And to me, the big thing I look at for them is their offensive line. Their right tackle, I'm not even going to try to get his last name right. It's going to be a disaster. Andrew Lenegang, who actually played guard primarily, and this year ends up at right tackle. Really a good football player, fundamentally sound. I'm not sure athletically if he's got what you want. And this is the other thing, and something that you and I have talked about. He's a tackle, former guard, 30 and a quarter arms.
Yeah.
You know, NFL teams, they're already scared of guys with short arms at tackle. That might even be so short at guard.
He might have to kick in and play center.
Yeah, and that's a hard, you and I know. I mean, making that transition at any point to center is hard because of the challenges if you haven't done it before. So he's a good football player. I'm not sure where the future is for him, if there is one at the NFL. He might actually be a guy that a CFL team looks at and says, this guy's got a chance. Their center, Sam Hecht, I mean, he's sort of what you're looking for as a guy that could make the jump. 6'4", just under 300 pounds. Really smart, always in the right position, does a good job of playing within his limits. He's not an elite athlete, but he plays right up to the level of his athleticism by staying under control, keeping his feet underneath him, not leaning and reaching all the time. And then the guard next to him, Taylor Pointer, not a guy that's getting a lot of NFL attention, wasn't even on the lists when the fall started. But this is a kid that's just about 6'2.5", 6'3", 300 pounds, a good, tough, competitive guy along the lines of a lot of the Kansas State interior offensive linemen over the years. Very smart, very physical, gets a little out of control at times. But I think that offensive line for Kansas State is going to be the key today. They've got a very good receiver in Jerron Bradley, over 6'4", over 220 pounds. He's not a blazer, but he's got a little bit of juice. He's got a little bit of burst in him. He makes plays, and in today's NFL, where bigger receivers can really not only are accentuated, but can really make a difference because there's so many receivers out there. This is a kid that's got a chance to play at the next level. I think he's a guy that, if things go well in the postseason, he could be a guy that pushes to get into the 3rd round. He's an intriguing kid, big, long kid. I want to see how he does sort of the back half of his final season.
Yeah, big frame, lengthy wideout, 6'4", 222 pounds, that Jerron Bradley, and that's a very good look at the senior prospects. Also, they got a junior wideout in Jace Brown, who winded up on the East-West Shrine Bowl preseason watch list. 6 foot, 179 pounds, expected to test extremely fast, Russ. One thing watching Jace Brown, a little bit of the dropsies tend to pop up every now and then. So other than that, good route runner, top-notch speed, great production, probably the go-to target there for Avery Johnson, who I'll get to in a moment. But I got to talk about VJ Payne, another lengthy player, 6'3", 210 pounds on the back end of that defense. Defender, a little bit, ways to go in the pass coverage, but he's very aggressive in the box, comes up, stuffs the run. Major leader on this team, big time voice in that secondary, likes to call out the pre-snap assignments. And then Austin Romaine, again, a junior linebacker, 6'1" and 6'8", 245 pounds. He's not going to test through the roof. He's not going to wow you with the athleticism, but this is like a coach on the field. He's a 3-year starter, top-notch instincts. I watched this guy running around sideline to sideline. His range is incredible. His smarts, his football IQ. I mean, the coach relies upon him to really be that leader as a coach on the field. And, the physicality, the experience, the toughness, Austin Romaine, and I don't think he's going to come out in this year's draft, but I do believe he's going to be a draftable prospect when he does declare. And a lot of these big-time thumpers, 245-pound linebackers, they don't really exist like they once did at the National Football League level. But he's just too good to keep off of the field, and you're going to see him make plays all game long. And then Avery Johnson, the quarterback, there was a lot of love for him coming into the season in terms of what he could develop and become, but I just haven't seen it, Russ. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, obviously very athletic, elusive in the pocket, can extend plays, bulked up 12 pounds this offseason. But to me, he's just a one-read quarterback. And if that first read isn't there, he's looking to tuck and run. So Avery Johnson, he has all the tools in the toolbox, adequate size, good arm strength, exceptional athleticism. Just needs to learn to progress through his reads and develop a little bit more in that aspect. Russ, any thoughts on Avery Johnson or any of the guys that I just mentioned?
Well, firstly, you mentioned Avery Johnson 100%. I think this is a guy that you can look at and say, is it potential? Could it improve? Because when he sees it, he makes some nice throws. He's got some skills. As you mentioned, elite athlete. So NFL teams now would love that as a side to the passing skill. You want that guy who can affect games and create. But he's got to show he can do it, go through progressions, find that read at the last second, make a quick throw. That's what I want to see. The thing you mentioned, the receiver with the dropsies, and I apologize, I forgot his name, the underclassman, sort of a scouting tip, sort of something we've learned over the years. You and I know have been told this. So many people, and they start covering the draft, they start saying, oh, this kid, he's had some drops, but that's okay. He should still go in the first round. He's elite. The reason people like Rick and I mention the drops and that some in the media don't want to talk about is there is a long history of receivers with drop issues, with elite physical skills, with great character, great intangibles, make it to the NFL and they wash out. And the reason, and I say this, is I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've seen 3 receivers ever improve from drop issues to consistent hands. Julio Jones, when he came in, he would drop more catches, more balls than expected for an elite guy. Golden Tate was a guy in college, would drop more than he thought. And for the life of me, the third kid, I can't remember who it is, but I remember he was one of the first guys. But part of the problem you run into with receivers and improving their hands, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it, is their whole life, they've made it. They've been stars. And they've achieved their goal. They've made the NFL. So in their head, they've made it. So why change the manner in which they've gone about working out and preparing if this is what got them to the NFL? So instead of saying, I'm going to stay after practice or I'm going to come in early and get on the judge machine, they feel, well, if I just do everything I've always done, I'm going to be fine and I'll catch it better because I'll try harder. Whereas in reality, if you've had drop issues, the solution is the judge machine, the judge machine, the judge machine. And it requires doing something different than you've done. And it's not to knock them. Most of them, I don't think it even clicks that there's something else to do. Because a lot of times they're not being screamed at to go jump on the judge machine. Coach is just saying, pay attention, don't drop the ball. And so they think, well, I'll just do what I've always done and I'll pay more attention and I'll catch the ball better. And that unfortunately rarely translates. And the other thing I'll say, and I haven't looked at this young man, but a lot of guys with drop issues are not guys who reach out and use technique. They try to close their hands on it as arrived. They call it clapping. And I've never seen a clapper make it in the NFL. There have been a lot of guys that went early in the draft. A lot of guys try to close their hands as it arrives. It doesn't work because the pace of the ball is different on every throw because of the route and where the quarterback is in terms of his progressions and when the ball comes out. So trying to clap and catch is not going to happen. So that's another reason guys drop balls. Those are the 2 primary reasons. The guys got catching issues in college. You got to be really concerned that it's ever going to change at the next level.
Yeah, it's a concerning trait anytime it pops up, and it's something you don't want to see as an NFL talent evaluator. And since we're talking wide receivers, one last guy I'm going to mention, he's actually not going to be eligible until the 2028 NFL draft, but we all know Tyler Lockett, his younger brother Sterling Lockett. He's a really good-looking slot receiver there for Kansas State, just somebody to keep an eye on for future NFL drafts. All right. Clap on, clap off. He's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. We're talking NFL draft here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch pregame show. We do it each and every Saturday. Today is October 25th, 2025. We're talking Kansas State at Kansas, Big 12 matchup, noon Eastern, TNT. All right, Russ, let's take a look at the Kansas Jayhawks prospects for the 2026 NFL draft. Who do you got?
Well, firstly, I got to say, we're going to talk about Jalen Daniels. He's a unique guy, quarterback. But when you look at Kansas, their talent is really impressive. Offense and defense, in terms of talent, their prospects, they're loaded with senior guys that are good football players. They may not all be guys that are looking at being drafted, even in the later rounds. A lot of these guys are going to be priority free agents, but they are solid from top to bottom. And Coach Lance, their head coach, John DiFilippo, who's helping them out there, the whole staff there, both the coaching and the recruiting people, they've done a great job of finding guys that fit what Lance is doing, and they play the way he wants them to play. So when you look at the offensive line, I mean, a lot of it to me, it starts with Bryce Foster, their center. I mean, 6'4" and change, 312. This guy's the leader of that offensive line. He gets them lined up. Very smart football player. And right next to him, he's got Kobe Barnes, another guy that a lot of NFL teams are really intrigued by. 6'3" and change, 320. NFL teams think this is a guy that can be effective both as a power player, but also athletically. He can move. He can do things in space. So having a center and a guard of that level, really something you look forward to. And then they have a kid who had played guard early in his career, ends up at right tackle this year, Enrique Cruz, not a guy that was on NFL draft list before the season, but he's a big kid, somewhere between 6'5" and 6'6", over 320 pounds. And he's not a top athlete, but NFL teams look at him and say, this is a big kid, knows what he's doing, does his job consistently, plays with good technique. There's a lot to like. And as I've learned in this business a long time, if you're over 6'5", you're over 300, you're starting at a Power 5 program at tackle, you have to get a look because there aren't that many humans in the world that are that big and that can move their feet and play the position. And if you can play under Lance, who is a tremendous motivator, but he's also a guy who pushes his kids and makes them work. You don't get through playing at Kansas if you are not a worker. So you know that if you've gotten through there and you are now starting, there's something to you in terms of the mental side that you're going to be able to handle it. They also have skill players on offense. Hinshaw, the running back, this guy's been productive for him ever since he stepped on campus. Emmanuel Henderson, the receiver, and Levi Wentz. Neither Henderson or Wentz is a guy that NFL teams are saying, wow, this guy's going to be a top kid, a draft pick. But I think both of these kids, along with Hinshaw, are going to get an opportunity in the NFL. Hinshaw, the running back, is sort of that guy that he's thickly built, over 210 pounds. And oddly, he's a twitchy little quick guy. So he's sort of to me, he's sort of that guy that's between two things. He's not that super dynamic, run away from you guy, but he's also not that little guy that gets run over. He's got a little power to him. He can break tackles. I like him. I think he's got to roll at the next level. And then you look at them defensively. Their whole D-line is a bunch of hard scrabble, just we're coming after you no matter what, as they are traditionally at Kansas and since Lance has been there. Both their defensive ends a little bit undersized. One of them 6'5", 227 is Dean Miller. He's an elite guy. NFL teams are talking about him second or third round. And then they got a kid named Justice Finkley, about 6'1" and change, about 240-ish. Both these guys come off the edge. They play like it matters. Every single snap, it matters. The Miller kid's a little bit more polished, a little more powerful for 227 pounds. It's surprising his ability to run guys over at times, and he plays with great intensity. I think this is a guy that's going to get probably a little overlooked when it comes to the draft. Even if he goes in that second or third round, I think he's better than some of the guys that are going to end up going ahead of him. This is a really good football player. And then their interior guys, DJ Withers, Tommy Dunn. Neither of these guys is at the top of the NFL boards in terms of defensive tackles. Both these kids, though, are going to get an opportunity at the next level. Withers at 6'3" and change, 304. Dunn at 6'2" and change, 305, both with good long arms, 33.5 and 32. They do their job. They stay at home. They're a little more athletic than a lot of 300-pounders are, so they can get penetration. Their front four, that defensive line, those four players, they are really impressive. The kid, I think, that doesn't get enough credit on this defense, sort of an unheralded guy, and it's a unique name to me, Gali Kamara, linebacker, 6'0", 224, athletic kid who can run. He's not real big. The 224, I think, is a little sort of misnomer. I don't think he plays that big. I think he's more of an athlete running around out there. But he has a nose for the ball. He makes plays. He's the guy that I think is going to have trouble maybe finding a home in terms of on the field defensively at the next level. But I could see him being a special teams guy at the next level because he knows what's going on. He's always around the ball, and he makes a lot of plays. So that's my look at like the bulk of their senior guys. And then we can dive into the big cheese, right?
Yeah, well, so the one guy I did want to mention, redshirt senior LaShawn Williams, the second part of that running back backfield, who had over 800 yards at Iowa 2 years ago. Then
Yep.
I think he got hurt. Then he resurfaces at Kansas. And the last couple of weeks, he's really been involved in the offense. Compact runner, 5'9" and 3/8 inches, 211 pounds, right from your neck of the woods there in Chicago, Illinois. And he's somebody who might get a training camp tryout, at least a good look, and maybe latch on as a practice squad. And of course, Jalen Daniels is an interesting case study because at 6 foot, 220 pounds, he's almost built like a running back, Russ, but he's had all this production at the collegiate level. I gave him a Tyrod Taylor comparison.
It's interesting. I see Tyrod Taylor, and trust me, I'm not trying to overhype him and make him into an all-pro. But when I look at his size, and it's not the skill set, I don't want to say he's the same passer, but when I see the sort of competitiveness, the fieriness, the unwillingness to quit, there's a little bit of Baker Mayfield in this kid. I'm not saying he's that good a thrower. I'm not saying he's a first-round pick. I think he is a priority free agent. Maybe someone takes a flyer on him in the 7th round. But just when I watch him play, he plays like with that attitude that I love about Baker, which is, hey, I am going to find a way. Somehow, some way, I'm putting this offense on my back and we're making plays. And this kid's also gone through missing a season due to injury. He's matured since he burst out on the scene 5 or 6 years ago there. I mean, he's developed into an all-around quarterback. When he first got there, he was basically give me the ball, I'm going to move around, and if I see somebody, I'm going to throw it. Otherwise, it's off to the races. Now he's really developed. I mean, yes, they do run a lot of run option, but he reads the defense. He's patient in the pocket. I am so intrigued by this guy. And we always say this because you and I, in our experience, both scouting and CFL, is, yes, I'm excited to see if he gets a chance in the NFL. But, oh, gosh, do I think he could really kill things up in the CFL. Oh, yeah. This is the type of guy, you put him on that bigger field with his leadership, his sort of like that moxie. I think you put this guy up there. There's a little bit of, like I mentioned, Baker. Also a little bit of like a Jeff Garcia type in this kid. You put him on that big field, I think this kid could really kill it. He's already on a team's neg list. I can't remember which one. Sure. I think it might be Winnipeg, but this kid's going to play somewhere, whether it's NFL or CFL. I just like this kid a ton. I think everything is there for him to succeed either in the NFL or CFL.
No doubt about it. And he's got loads of experience, right? And we've seen the signal callers in recent years with that college experience. This guy's probably got over 40 career starts under his belt. And he's got explosive athleticism, obviously, but he has developed as a pocket passer, but he can still take off and kill you with his feet. And, he's going to be a very similar type of player to Tyrod Taylor. You mentioned the adversity. He had that knee surgery almost 8 months prior to the season, right? And, he can sling it. That Jalen Daniels, right?
Yeah, so, I will say I thought when he came on the scene, I really thought at this point he might be a little bit better of a true passer. I think that's something I want to see him. I wanted to see him get better at. I still hope he can improve in that area because there's a lot to like about this kid, both intangibles-wise, character-wise, and ability to make plays. I just would like to see a little bit more consistency throwing the ball. But because like that Missouri game, we both talked about it when they played. He missed 2 big throws down the field that probably would have put Kansas up to where they couldn't have been caught by Missouri and lost. There's something to like about the kid. I just want to see a little bit more consistency. I think there's something to him.
No doubt about it. He's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. This is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch pregame show here, October 25th, 2025. Each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, we appreciate all the love and support. Please smash that like button while you're here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be isolating a lot of these segments and posting them up on the YouTube channel as well. And we're going to get into our second marquee matchup of the day, Russ. We're going to go over to down in Miami tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Stanford Cardinal, don't look now. They've been playing very well, entering the Hurricanes. And you know what? Miami now, they got to be on the lookout for this upstart Stanford team led by Frank Reich, overseen by Andrew Luck. And there are some emerging players here in this matchup, but just a quick overview on your thoughts of this game.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of it's something I think if you had asked me a month ago, I would have said this is going to be a walk for Miami. This isn't going to be a challenge because Stanford was really muttering at the beginning of the season. But I think what you're seeing now is I think Coach Reich, who, I mean, my buddy was there when he was at the Chargers, the OC, and he raved about Coach Reich. And everybody that you know that has worked with Coach Reich says this guy is so smart, so detail-oriented. He is a motivator. Players just naturally want to play better for him. When he took that gig, I just thought it was a matter of time before he got them rolling. I thought it might have been next year when he got things going. But clearly they bought into his message. He's been getting the quarterback to play better. I'm going to screw this kid's name up.
Cole Branson.
Cole Brenson? Is that
Cole
Branson? Okay.
Yeah.
He's been playing so much better. Clearly, Coach Reich has got him to take a deep breath and say, let's play efficient football. Let's not try to make or throw for a touchdown every single play. Let's take what's there. Let's make plays. I've really been impressed by what Coach Reich has done. So this is not a walk game for Miami in any stretch. This one's going to be a close game down to the end.
All right, well, let's dive into some of the prospects in this matchup. We'll start off with the Stanford Cardinal. Who are some players that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, they don't have a huge amount of seniors, which that's another thing that Coach Reich has had to do is sort of get some of these younger guys into the mix. But of their upperclassmen, we mentioned the quarterback. This is a kid probably a little under 6'3", 220. Throws a good ball. Underrated athlete, not going to make any big plays in terms of like a Michael Vick or a Lamar Jackson, but he's a better athlete than I think he gets credit for. He has improved week to week. I think he's playing efficient football, making good decisions. There are two receivers, C.J. Williams, a kid that came in from Wisconsin, Bryce Farrell, different guys. Farrell's a smaller guy, probably a little under 5'10", 175. C.J. Williams, a bigger kid, over 6 foot, 200 pounds. But they're a good pairing because the Williams kid is a better athlete, bigger, stronger, can catch the ball, can make plays. Farrell is sort of route runner, catches the ball well, does a great job of sort of finding space. They also have a tight end named Sam Roche. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. 6'4" and change, 250, runs really well for a big guy, has natural hands. NFL teams are intrigued by his ability to move around, catch balls out in space. This is an interesting guy, especially in today's NFL, where every team is desperately looking to find the tight end, especially not in the first round. To find that guy like the Chargers look like they found in round 5 with Gadsden. Everybody's looking for that taller, athletic kid, 6'4.5", 250. This kid's got a lot of those traits, athletic with good hands. I'm looking forward to see him, especially because Miami's defense, they've got some athletes. He's going to get challenged athletically. On the defensive side of the ball, they don't have a lot of senior guys. Most of their guys are the seniors that are there are guys that were not on the list to start the year. They've sort of worked their way into roles. Clay Patterson and Anthony Franklin, 2 defensive linemen, similar size guys, somewhere between 6'2" and 3, between 280 to 290. Neither one of them is going to win an award for just overpowering people or for being a world-class athlete, but both these kids, they're high competitive guys. They have the tools to be sort of, I don't want to insult them, but they're the type of guy that's going to make a challenge to make a roster as a backup. I don't think they're going to really be guys that are really starting type material at the NFL level. And then they have a safety named Mitch Liegber, decent size at 6 foot, 200, smart kid, does his job, plays under control, doesn't allow anything to get behind him, makes sure that the secondary knows where to get lined up. So does a good job. And these are 3 guys that weren't even on the NFL's radar before the season. Now they're at least getting looks. NFL teams are evaluating them. So they've got some prospects. But like I mentioned, the bulk of their talent is underclassmen.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to our guy, Ryan Paglia at the NFL Draft Bible, because he put Matt Rose, the linebacker, on my radar. Week 1 of the college football season. Another one of these guys, not on the Blesto, not on the National, but he's just been making plays for the Cardinal all season long. 6'2" and 3/8 inches, 230 pounds. He's a field general on the field, but he's just gritty. He's ferocious. I see him making goal line stuffs, critical stops, momentum changing plays. Matt Rose is a really good looking player. He may or may not get drafted, but to your point, he's got those make it traits. And this is somebody, again, who's going to look to improve. Teams are constantly trying to churn the bottom of that roster, 47 to 53. This guy, Matt Rose, he's going to be one of those candidates there at the next level. And then, of course, we do have to mention cornerback Colin Wright, 5'11", 4/8, 190 pounds. Not going to be an extremely athletic tester that jumps through the gymnasium, but just a sound player, smart football IQ, does a lot of press technique there, right? And so,
yep. No, sorry, I was going to jump
yeah,
in there because I one of the things you said, and this is example of why Rick's been doing this so long and been so good at what he's doing, that he knows what NFL teams are thinking, where most people in the media that cover the draft have no idea. What he mentioned on Matt Rose about the fact that traits, when teams get down into the later rounds of the draft, and especially when they're looking at priority free agents, nobody is signing a player that doesn't have traits. Nobody is signing a kid just because he was super tough, just because he was a great kid, just because he's gigantic. They look at the traits. They look at the triangle numbers, height, weight, speed. They look at the testing numbers in terms of spark score, explosive test, and say, are there some traits here? And you mentioned it with Rose. There are some traits there in terms of what he brings to the table. So that's the thing that people have to understand. When you get later in the draft, and especially in priority free agency, it's about having traits. Because if you don't have traits, the odds of you sticking on a roster are virtually zero. And that's why a kid like Matt Rose, even if he doesn't get drafted, probably has a better chance than a lot of kids that are going to get an opportunity as not a priority free agent, but just to fill out the roster free agent, because he has traits, and traits matter.
Yeah, Colin Wright and Matt Rose, two guys that are going to get a look. And sometimes, when you're in that day 3 category, obviously, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But a guy like Rose, once that 6th, 7th round rolls around, he might actually be better off being an undrafted free agent. So that way his agent could choose a team and a roster where he has a better shot of earning a spot on that 53-man roster. So Stanford Cardinal, not overly talented, not a lot of high recruits, but good fundamental coaching and player development is what you're seeing out of Stanford.
Yeah, there's no doubt. They have some young guys that I think are probably a little bit higher on the initial recruiting list. But what they're doing there is, I think it's really impressive. I think this is going to keep Coach Reich there. I know he's the interim guy. I think he's going to end up signing a deal and staying there long term after this season, because they got this going in the right direction. And I think Andrew Luck has a confidence level with Frank Reich. So why would you make a change?
It makes sense to me. He's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. We're going to get into the Miami Hurricanes prospect watch, Russ, because we go from one extreme to the other, where Stanford has a couple guys teetering on the NFL draft radar. Miami has players all over popping up on the NFL draft radar. Where do you want to begin?
Well, first, I mean, it's sort of ridiculous how many prospects they have. When you look offense, defense, it's all over. I mean, you look on defensively, I think what's so interesting is you have a guy like David Blay, and they've done a great job at Miami. Give them credit. They've using the portal, right? David Blay, defensive tackle, 6'4", 305, comes from Louisiana Tech. Athletic kid, strong, really has sort of carved out a role for himself there. Then you have the Canadian kid, Akeem Mesidor. Been there pretty much for a while. 6'02", 273. I think for the NFL, I think this guy's going to be a productive player. I like this kid. I think he looks smaller than 270. I think he looks about 255 when you watch him on film. He's got a little twitch off the ball. He's got a little shake. He has a natural instinct for how to defeat pass blocks. I think he's going to be a very good player at the NFL level. And as we both know, if the NFL doesn't work, he's going to get paid a good amount of money, because he's going to be one of the better defensive players in the CFL, and he's got the red passport. So he will be a highly paid Canadian player in the CFL if he doesn't make it in the NFL. Wesley Bisant, their linebacker, not a huge kid, a little over 6'1", 220 plus pounds, but he can run. He's constantly around the ball making plays. He's a guy NFL teams are trying to figure out, does he fit better as an inside or an outside? Because so many teams are now using 220-pound guys as their mics if they can really cover and run, and this kid can. I think this kid's going to end up being a day 2 pick, somewhere in that 2nd or 3rd round. You have Mohamed Toure playing next to him. The kid you and I talked about missed 2 years, I think, due to ACL and knee injuries at Rutgers. He's blossomed at Miami. I shouldn't say blossomed. People saw it at Rutgers, but he's blossomed in terms of he's back from the injuries. He's playing good football. He's showing the talent level everybody thought they saw at Rutgers, but were disappointed with the injuries. And then they have a safety, another transfer kid from Tennessee and Middle Tennessee, Jacob Thomas, big, long safety, 6'2", 200 pounds. The type of guy who you can move around, use him in a variety of spots on defense, so your defense isn't predictable. I think he's a kid that, although he wasn't on the radar preseason, I think a lot of NFL teams are looking at him saying he might be a guy that could fit because he's a move-around multiple guy. And that's just on defense, Rick. Then you move over to offense. They have even more guys. I mean, we all know, we've all talked, and you and I have talked at length about Carson Beck, and the physical tools have been there his whole career. The mental and intangibles, to me, that's improved dramatically throughout his career. He seems like a different guy when you watch him in the huddle, when you watch him on the sidelines. He seems so mature and calm now. There's a lot to like about him. When you look at the receivers, C.J. Daniels, the Keelan Marion kid, who BYU and UConn, I know that Daniels is a kid that was on the NFL's radar before the season, and Marion was sort of a little bit of an afterthought. I honestly think Marion's at least become even, if not surpassed, Daniels in terms of where he's going to be. I like this Marion kid. I think he's underrated. Not a huge kid, a little under 6 foot, 190 plus pounds. The kid makes plays. He's got natural hands. He's got natural ability to make things happen when he's got the ball in his hands. Their offensive line, I know we've talked about it before. You have the kid Brockemeyer, their center. He's not going to win any awards for being the most dominant physical guy because he's not gigantic, but he's a fundamentally sound kid, plays over his feet, knows what he's doing, gets his guys in the right position. He really does a good job. Then you have two giants, Inez Cooper, guard, 6'5" and 5/8", almost 350 pounds, long arms, 34 plus. He needs to find a way to prove that he can be a guy that can handle the change of direction. I want to see if this guy, we know he can handle guys that try to bull rush. Now, sometimes he gets a little high, lets guys into his chest, doesn't play as strong as he's capable of, but can he handle the side to side? And then the other kid, to me, you and I know it's the traits. The Markel Bell kid, he's going to get an opportunity. Whether it's as earlier for him, a fourth-round pick, or a late, someone's going to take him because there aren't many humans that are 6'8" and change, 340 pounds with 36-inch arms. So somebody late is going to say, I don't care that he was inconsistent. I don't care that he got benched during part of his senior year. We're going to roll the dice on him because there aren't enough humans. He's played at major college football. And I think if you take the 10 best plays from every game, those 10 best plays look like an NFL player. So is he a polished guy? No. Does he do things right? No. He does a lot of, and we've talked about this in the past about tackles. He stops his shuffle. He tends to make contact, stop his feet, and then he ends up leaning to make blocks. And then when he tries to go get guys, he stops his feet and leans to go get them. These are habits he has to break, and sometimes they can break it, and sometimes they never do. But he's so big, and he does have decent feet for a giant man. He's going to get opportunities at the next level. I think if he can get with the right coach, and I think in truth, if a team is smart enough to put him on the practice squad for a year, give him a year to work with an NFL coach, get his weight down a little bit, work on the fundamentals, I think there's a lot of potential for this kid.
Reminds me a little bit of Liam Fornadell coming out of James Madison, and he went the UFL route, spent a year with the DC Defenders starting there, and I think he actually may have even transitioned to center, but maybe Markel Bell is a developmental guy. You spend a year in the UFL, you get some reps under your belt, and then you develop into an NFL caliber offensive lineman. A couple guys I want to touch upon because Keelan Marion is a guy I scouted numerous times up at UConn. Very electrifying wide receiver, also returns kicks. The one knock there, Russ, is just the hammies. He's always got some kind of knick-knack injury. You know, these speed guys, they always get caught with those hammies. So that's just something you got to keep in mind with Keelan Marion. Now, Mohamed Toure, when I went into Rutgers a couple years ago, Greg Schiano told me personally, he said, if this kid ever gets an invite to the combine, he's going to test better than any linebacker in the draft. So he might be one of these workout warriors. And I don't know if he's a combine invite, but, you know, these pro day workout warriors that just
he'll go higher than people expect. He's going to be a guy that pushes himself into day two as long as he medically checks out and there's no red flags with that knee.
And the medical will be a big if there. Now, of course, The two big prospects, Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle, 6'5" and 6/8 inches, 315 pounds out of Samoa. Power, size, movement skills, hand placement. He's going to be a first-round talent at the next level. And then you have arguably the best player in the draft in Ruben Bain. I mean, this guy can do no wrong. He's 6'2", 5/8 inches, 275 pounds, which is an interesting size, frame, dimension. But there's a little bit of hype now. The hype train is building. There's some love out there for Ruben Bain. Some people actually putting him in the Abdul Carter category or possibly higher, Russ.
No, I've been I've been hearing that from scouts, that this is a guy that basically they're saying, hey, you may not think of him as a guy that deserves the challenge to be a top 10 or 15 guy, but he is going to be in that discussion. NFL teams are really intrigued by the fact that no matter what happens, he produces. He finds a way, no matter what the matchup is, no matter who he's going against, no matter how he is in terms of, is he battling through an injury? Is he dealing with whatever it may be? He gets out there and produces immense talent. Yeah, NFL teams have been talking about him as a guy that is probably going to be a guy that people aren't talking about. And then as the draft gets closer, he's going to be the guy that all the media people start saying, oh, he's rising. He's come out of nowhere. Whereas legitimately, NFL scouts have been saying he's a potential high first-round pick from the middle of the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He gets after the ball, speed to power, creating fumbles, sacks, interceptions. I mean, he is a defensive stud playmaker, that Ruben Bain. And the Hurricanes, shout out to Mario Cristobal for all the talented recruits he's brought down there in Miami. We've known a long time about the facilities down there and the upgrades they needed to make, and Cristobal has gotten the job done here for the Miami Hurricanes. All right, one more game we're going to preview here today on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. He's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. By the way, quick programming reminder, if you go over to allaccessfootball.com, we did post the next matchup over on the Draft Insider. In fact, we've got 19 players from UCLA, 19 players from Indiana, 38 total prospects for you to digest with measurements, projections, evaluations. So check out the Draft Insider over at allaccessfootball.com. Tomorrow, we're going to unveil our mid-major and small school prospect scouting report, big board. Our scouts have been compiling all these small school, FCS, mid-major, non-Power 4 program prospects that we're going to post on the website on Sunday. So keep a lookout for that. Now, the marquee matchup of the week here on October 25th, 2025. It's going to happen nice and early for us, Russ. I know you always appreciate a noon kickoff fair, and it's your UCLA Bruins at the Indiana Hoosiers. Ironically, and I wrote this on the Draft Insider, and I know Indiana took care of Oregon, but the way Tim Skipper, Jerry Neuheisel and company has these Bruins playing 3 victories in a row, this could arguably be the toughest opponent to date for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Oregon game obviously was a big challenge. I mean, they did a tremendous job, but for Indiana to have to play UCLA, this is not a gimme. I think you and I would agree 3 weeks ago, we would have said this isn't even a game. I mean, UCLA was 0-4. People didn't know what was going on. They fired Coach Foster. They reshuffled some things. You're right. I mean, I'm a Bruin. I didn't go there out of high school, but that was my first job in football. I grew up a Bruin fan, so I am a loyal Bruin fan. And then you add in the fact a few years ago, I had the opportunity to work out 2 players, Shea Pitts and Lee Pitts. Both of them, their father, Ron Pitts, a UCLA star, played in the NFL. And Shea and Lee were college players. I worked them out for the Edmonton Elks. Neither one was good enough to really play professional football, but just phenomenal young men. You talk about kids that check every box, and Lee has now gone on to work for the NFL, and Shea has been promoted. He's now an assistant coach there at UCLA, and it's so exciting to see his career starting to take off just as UCLA is starting to turn it around. Very excited for what they're doing there. I hope they continue to win. I do honestly believe they've got a good chance to win this game. I think Indiana's obviously a top program now, and I want to see Coach Cignetti continue to have success. But I think UCLA's got a real chance to win this game. I think that they are really playing great football. And I think one of the things that they've done is they have started to get consistency from their quarterback and consistency from their offensive line. Because the first part of the year, Nico, who transferred in from Tennessee, a lot of publicity over what happened. He's a big kid, big arm. When he is doing things well, he looks like a future star. But the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, that offensive line was really struggling. He was losing patience in the pocket. He was making awful decisions, missing receivers. But over the last month, Cortland Ford, their left tackle, Ruben Unje, their right tackle, Garrett DeGorio, who was a former offensive tackle, now he's playing right guard. Those three guys, those three seniors have
Big
really
body.
big, huge body guys. All of them 6'5" plus, 2 of them over 6'6". These guys have stabilized that offensive line. And I think when you look at these guys, you're talking about 3 legit, in my opinion, NFL prospects. Now, we're not talking about first round type guys. We're talking day 3 type guys. But the DeGorio guy who had played tackle, now he's playing guard, which I think is helping him because I think NFL teams can now look at him and say, okay, we weren't sure about you at tackle. We thought you had a chance, but now we're seeing you at guard. Now we know you can be that emergency guy in game day. Worst case, you can be the 3rd tackle, the 4th guard. That gives him a great versatility grade. Then you look at the tackles. Cortland Ford sort of coming out of nowhere. Ruben and OJ. These guys have done a really good job of sort of building up and becoming those tackles they need, which has made Nico much more consistent. Their tight end is a really good football player, Hudson Habermehl, over 6'6", 250 pounds, underrated athlete. This kid's smooth. He can run. He catches the ball well. There's something about this kid that I really like. When you watch him, he's got a unique ability to get separation versus guys that are faster than him. He's got just that feel, that it. Jalen Berger, their running back, really good football player, started to come on the past few weeks. And this receiver, I'm going to screw up his name, Titus Moko Atimala.
Yeah, he's come on strong.
He really has. For a guy that I think a month ago, people were like, is he ever going to be the guy? He has started to come on and be the guy. I mean, he's really made some big strides. So when you look offensively, they've got a lot of guys who before the season were not highly regarded prospects. They were probably free agent types at best. I think a number of, and I think even the first 2 or 3 weeks, people probably would have said the same thing. But Coach Skipper, and I think the confidence, and Coach Neuheisel, I think all of that combined has some of these guys playing better, and overall they're raising their stock. On the other side of the ball, they've got a few guys. They don't have a huge amount of upperclassmen defensively. Their best one is Gary Smith, their nose tackle, 6'1" and change, 329 pounds, big long arms, 33. Powerful kid. He's a way better athlete than you expect for a 330-pound kid. He can get a push, but he can actually move a little bit. This is a guy that I think is going to challenge. Now, we don't know for sure where guys are getting drafted. I think he's got a chance to push into day 2. Athletic defensive tackles that are 330 pounds generally are thought of as nose tackles, but this kid's not just a nose. He's got a little bit something to him. 2 other D linemen that they have there that are on the NFL radar. Don't think they're going to get as much love as Gary Smith or Jacob Busick, defensive end, just under 6'4", 265. And Keanu Williams, 6'5", 320, a defensive tackle playing next to Gary Smith. Big, long kid. He's not as good as Smith in my eyes, but I think he's going to get some run. JoJo Vaughn's their linebacker, undersized kid. I don't know if he really looks as a linebacker or is he a safety playing up as a linebacker, because he's about 6 foot 215, but he can run. He makes plays from sideline to sideline. And then their free safety, Key Lawrence, over 6 foot, 180 pounds, doesn't look real big on film, but he has range. He's always around the ball, seems to have a nose for what's going on. So defensively, they don't have a lot of superstars that are going to be high picks, but they've got a handful of guys, 4 or 5 guys that are going to get an opportunity at the NFL level. And the Gary Smith, to me, that nose tackle, defensive tackle, whatever you want to call him, he is an underrated guy. I think he's better than he's getting credit for, and I think he could be the key to UCLA staying in this game, because if he can be disruptive and make Mendoza not be able to sit in the pocket and make plays throwing the ball, just disrupt him a little bit, that could be enough to keep that offense from getting rolling. And if they're not rolling, this can be a close game.
No, I agree with you. It's going to be a very fun game to watch. And you mentioned Key Lawrence. It feels like he's been around forever. As has the running back, Jalen Berger,
Yeah.
out of Brick City, New Jersey. This guy was supposed to be the next big deal, New Jersey to Wisconsin running back, kind of flashed there his freshman year, transfers to Michigan State, I think endured a few injuries, got lost in the mix. I think he's a sixth-year senior at 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's come on for UCLA, Jerry Newhouse making use of him. And then you mentioned Nico Imalavava.
Well, I mentioned Nico. I let you screw around with the last name.
You let me butcher his last name, and I've been practicing it too, and I'm disappointed with the end result there. But Nico has really come on strong. He's making better decisions. And Russ, when he throws the ball downfield, I mean, this guy throws a beautiful deep ball. He's got a cannon of an arm. Obviously, he can make plays happen with his legs. I thought coming into the season he could maybe contend for the first round, but he's a redshirt sophomore. If he were to declare, he's probably in that day 3 category. But I think at this stage, he either comes back or he transfers. But what do you think about his upside and potential at the next level?
Well, I think his upside is definitely there. There's no question. If he's smart, and trust me, I'm not trying to tell a kid what to do. He's got to make his own decisions. Every family's different. But unlike a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of players who say get in the NFL as soon as you can to get working towards that second contract, for a quarterback, there's always a risk there. And the reason I say that is for quarterbacks, every year teams are desperately searching. And if you get in the NFL and you're either a late round pick or a PFA and they stick you on the practice squad and you're the third guy for a year, and the next year they happen to find a guy, they bring him in. If you haven't developed much, you're out. And there's a good chance you're not going to get another shot. Whereas stay another year, improve. That this kid's got the physical tools that if he can just make slight improvements, all of a sudden he may not ever get to be a first-round guy. Could, but I'm just saying, even if he doesn't, even if he only gets to that 4th round, 5th round type area, gets picked, then when you get drafted, there's a different willingness to develop. Teams are willing to spend a little more time, keep you as a third or a practice squad guy for 2 or 3 years. And this kid's got the tools that I think with continued coaching in the college ranks, then coaching in the NFL, there's something there. Because you mentioned the deep ball. He's a big kid. There's something about this kid when I watch him play that I look at and I think, man, there's something here. If they can just get him to be more consistent, move his feet a little bit more when he goes through progressions, stay consistent with his mechanics. If I were him and I was trying to help recommend to him, I would stay right where he is as long as the staff stays the same. I would stay there, keep the continuity, be prepared for next year. And next year, I think he could really explode onto the scene because, and I'm not trying to say he's going to be a first rounder, but when you look at a player like Carson Beck, when you look at the kid Mendoza, are you telling me that Mendoza and Beck physically are so far superior? No.
Right.
Now, it's their consistency. It's what they do on a game-to-game basis. Well, Nico did the transfer thing, caught a lot of heat, went through all of that, had a bad start to the season. He's doing well now. Why not have a off season of calmness, stay there, work with the coaches, get better, and next year he can explode because of the consistency, take a deep breath, and I think he will be a far higher pick going into the NFL.
Agree. And consistency is key. And, whenever he does declare, you're going to have an interesting war room debate because there's going to be a QB coach, an offensive coordinator that's going to say, hey, give me that guy. I'll tap into him. I'll coach him up. I can get it out of him, right? That's the kind of prospect that
no doubt. That's exactly what he is. And that's the argument you always get is when you have a kid that maybe is 6'1" and change, scrappy like a Baker Mayfield, and don't get me wrong, Baker has elite talent, but the guy that may not have premier, rare, special tools, and then you get a big, tall kid who can make all the throws and makes it look easy. There are a lot of coaches that say, oh, I can change him. I can coach him. I can get the best out of him. When the reality is most college coaches know what they're doing, and most of them are as good, if not better, than their counterparts at the NFL level. So it's sort of an insult when coaches say, oh, I'll coach him up. Well, he's been getting coached by some good coaches in college. Not many guys get dramatically better with their coaching in the NFL. So that's why I'm saying for Nico, take your time, enjoy this offseason, get ready. You've got a chance to really blossom. And then there's no questions. Then teams are going to feel comfortable with what you are, because there is definitely NFL starting potential in this kid. He just has to unlock that consistency.
No doubt about it. That's a great look at the UCLA Bruins NFL draft prospects. He's Russell Lande. I'm Ric Serritella. We're talking UCLA at Indiana. We got one more team to preview today, Russ. And it is those Indiana Hoosiers who are flying and riding high. Curt Cignetti has got this program revving. And I think we do have to start with the quarterback here, because Fernando Mendoza, a redshirt junior with eligibility remaining, has kind of gained the momentum here in terms of being potentially the consensus top signal caller. I would imagine with the kind of down year with the quarterback prospects, I think it makes sense for Mendoza to declare for the draft.
Well, let me say this. I have to really watch him and study him before I can say yes, he's a legit guy or not. What he has shown in flashes on TV, yeah, there's a lot to like. The arm is there; he can make all the throws. I haven't studied him enough to where I say he's a definite guy that should declare. And the reason I say that is there are a lot of guys I've watched in games where you watch them and go, "Oh, wow, he can do this, he can do this," and then when I actually start studying him, I go, "Ooh, not as good." Or the opposite. Sometimes I see a guy doesn't blow me away. Then you actually watch the film and he's way better. He looks really intriguing. He looks like a very skilled quarterback from watching games. I just haven't broken down 6 or 7 games of film. That's going to be my job the next week, to sort of dive into him and see what he is. I want to see if he's legitimately a top quarterback, or is he a guy, and this happens, we've both seen it. We probably can point to E.J. Manuel, maybe is the biggest one, where there's always going to be 1 or 2 quarterbacks who get pushed up into that first round territory when there's no quarterbacks in that draft. So I want to look at him closely before I can say, yeah, definitely come out. And hopefully someone's going to close to him, and I'm sure Curt will do this, will get him with NFL people to find out what they really think before he makes a decision. That's the tough part for these kids.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand league, right? So,
yes.
And in a down year, a guy like Mendoza, whether you like it or not, he is going to get pushed up the board, and he can spin it. You know, I see him
no question
tight windows. He gives me a little bit of Joe Flacco vibes, a little bit. And you know, I was really I was hoping to see more in that Oregon game against Dante Moore, and I do think Mendoza was the better quarterback of the two. But I didn't come away from that game saying, wow, I want to build my franchise around him. And I think that's the big question, especially if you got take a look at some of these teams atop the NFL draft. Looks like a lot of them are going to need a quarterback.
That's exactly what I thought, Rick. You put it in the best terms possible. Him and Moore in that game, I think a lot of people said, hey, I think the week before there were a few media people saying, hey, Dante Moore may be the best prospect in the country, quarterback, potential first overall pick. So I went in excited to watch it. Moore really struggled. Didn't make many throws that really grabbed your attention. Mendoza made about 6 or 8 throws that said, wow, that's a legit NFL throw. That requires arm talent. That requires anticipation. That requires seeing the defense, making the proper read. But there were also a handful of plays he made that you were like, oh, come on, you can't do that. Clearly, you got to do this. So it was a little disappointing in terms of he didn't jump out and put a stamp and say, I am the guy. But he is, he's basically is a junior. I know he can declare, but a lot of times juniors aren't as consistent as they would be with one more year. So I really have to sit down and grind out every throw. You know me, I'm sort of a quarterback nut job. And I want to see what I see when I actually chart every throw. Do I see a legit guy who deserves to be considered at the top of the draft? Or am I seeing a guy that has immense talent, but that consistency is not there where I'd feel comfortable taking him at the top? Is he more of is he a Baker? Is he a Justin Herbert type guy that deserves to go in the top 5 picks? Or is he a guy that's inconsistent, that the talent is there, and maybe he's more of a 2nd or 3rd round guy with upside? And that's what I have to really grade the film and try to make a decision on. I don't want to put my stamp on him until I've done that.
All right, fair enough. But the Hoosiers do have a slew of prospects here to highlight. So let's get into some of these top Indiana players on the NFL draft radar. Who do you got, Russ?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I just want to make one point. It's sort of interesting. Curt Cignetti's got Indiana up and running and killing it. We talked about Kansas earlier with Lance, their head coach. And if you look at this list of prospects, there's a lot of similarities in that they both have a lot of seniors. So they've developed these players. They've sort of built up a system where they may not have elite recruits and elite NFL talent, but they have a lot of good, solid prospects.
Yep.
And that's what you do when you're not at a Texas and when you're not at an Alabama that generally can go get the best of the best. Now, things are obviously different. The NIL's changing everything. But Indiana, it's interesting to see Indiana and Kansas, two programs that historically struggled. How are they doing it? They're building it with strong, fundamental, good players, maybe not truly rare players, but good players. You look all over Indiana, a lot of good players. You look at their skill set. The Hemby kid at running back, good football player, really a hard physical runner. You talk about a kid that's hard to get down. I mean, at 204 pounds, you wouldn't think he'd be able to take the shots he does. And whether it's breaking the tackle or spinning off the hit, he is an impressive football player. We've talked about their receivers before, Elijah Surratt, E.J. Williams. Surratt, I don't think gets enough credit. Sometimes he sort of gets disappeared because there's so much going on. But this kid's a really good football player, catches the ball well. And I love that fullback of theirs, the Nowakowski kid. You talk about a hard-nosed kid, came from Wisconsin. He will light guys up as a lead blocker, whether it's from a fullback alignment, whether it's as a tight end. This is a kid that's going to play on Sundays. He's going to be a tight end, fullback type guy that's playing in the NFL, gets a few carries here and there. He reminds me of that kid, the old fullback in the NFL whose the first name forgets me, O'Neal, that played for a long time. There's a little bit of similarity with this kid, sort of a violent physical hitter. And on their offensive line, it's interesting. Indiana's got a handful of young guys and two veterans. Pat Coogan, their center, he's been the guy, keeps things under control. Taller kid at almost 6'5", 310. Really is sort of the general there. And then the right tackle, Khalil Benson, almost 6'6", 320, big long arms, has played guard at times. Really been a stabilizing factor at right tackle. The rest of their offensive line, more younger guys, but they've done a good, solid job protecting Mendoza and giving him a chance to open up this offense. Defensively, we've talked about before, they've got a lot of guys. The Kamara kid, sort of the odd guy, just a shade over 6 foot, 260. Is that going to be big? Like, where does that fit at the NFL level? But for Indiana, this kid's a really good football player. Keelan Wyatt, the other defensive end, about 6'1", 255. So similar size-wise, two guys that come off the edge. Hosea Wheeler, their interior guy, a penetrator, a guy who can make plays. They have three really good defensive linemen there, and Kamara, Wheeler, and Watt, who are going to get NFL looks. Not sure any of them are going to get picked early. I think we're talking late-round PFA type guys, but they play hard. They don't make mistakes. They know what they're doing. They do a good job of keeping the offense from being able to get down the field. They really control the line of scrimmage. Aiden Fisher, the linebacker, we've talked about him before. He may be the best. He honestly, like I said, I can't put a stamp on Mendoza. I can't say how good or bad he is. So excluding Mendoza, I think Fisher's probably their best prospect. This kid makes plays all over the field. Tremendous range. I know he's only 6 foot and 2/8, but in the NFL now, 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1". It doesn't matter how tall you are, a linebacker. If you can run and cover like this kid can, you got everything. And this kid's going to play in the NFL. He's a really, really good football player. Then you look, they have the two safeties, and one of them is sort of a safety rover linebacker, even though he's littler. The Devin Boykin kid is about 5'10", 195. He plays like his hair's on fire. He's all over the field. And then Lewis Moore, their sort of true free safety, 5'10", 198. Good football player. He's probably not going to test off the charts or anything, but he's a fundamentally sound guy. Doesn't make that blow up mistake at the back end of the defense. There's a lot to like about how they built this team, how they have so many good, solid prospects, even if none of them are truly rare and special guys beyond maybe Aiden Fisher and, like I said, maybe Mendoza. I can't put my stamp on him because I haven't watched the film yet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Aiden Fisher. I think he might even be a top 50 prospect in the draft because
I agree.
He's going to test better than people realize. He's extremely smart. He can get after the quarterback. He can drop back in coverage. And then we mentioned the Oregon game. He actually played spy on Dante Moore and did a very good job of it. So you talk about a versatile jackknife kind of linebacker. Yeah, he lacks some height and length, but he's going to compensate, right? And he's a tone setter. Like, he makes big plays. He slips
all over
through
the
blocks,
field.
all over the field. Aiden Fisher, one of the most underrated players in college football. And you talked about, like, Indiana gets these guys. They're not big time recruits. They come and develop them. And one of those guys who's developing, a junior cornerback, D'Angelo Pons, a little bit small, 5'8" and 5/8 inches, probably why he wound up at Indiana, 173 pounds. But you can state an argument now that Pons is one of the premier slot defenders in all of the nation. So this is a guy, he may even test those NFL draft waters and dip his toe into the pool. But D'Angelo Pons, somebody getting a lot of love here as the season wears on.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, when you watch them play, I mean, it's really Aiden Fisher and Pons are the two guys that jump out. There's no doubt Pons athletically is an NFL player. The issue really comes down to height. Every team's going to have at least one of their starting corners in that 5'8" to 5'9" range. It's just you can't have two or three, because if all your corners are little, then you get into trouble. But Pons is going to be an NFL player. I think he'd be wise to get some feedback, find out what NFL teams think. I think the response is going to be, hey, come into the league. You're going to go in the first 3 rounds, so you may as well get started towards your second contract because you can play ball. He's a really twitchy kid, and twitchy helps make up for the fact that he's not as big as you'd like him to be. But yeah, Fisher and him, they're fun to watch. That game against Oregon, it seemed like every time you looked up, Fisher was making a tackle behind the line of scrimmage in pursuit. He was flying around against Oregon. Their offensive lineman could never get there in time to keep him from getting guys in pursuit. He was really impressive. So I like both of them. I can't wait to watch this game. Like I said, I'm rooting for Cignetti in Indiana. It's great to see Indiana do well, but in my heart of hearts, it's a Bruin day. Let's go Bruins. Let's pull this one out. I mean, I'm wearing it's for where my daughter goes to school. It's UCL. But I almost want to put the A there just to make it.
All right, fair enough. And UCLA, again, getting that noon kickoff over in Indiana. That's going to be on Fox.
They're going to need a little coffee. They're West Coast. It's like 9 a.m. They got to chug that coffee, get going.
Absolutely. We're going to be buckled up, hunkered down, and we're getting closer to that noon kickoff time, Russ. It's been an incredible show, and you delivered the goods once again, man. Just an incredible amount of analysis and research, and we appreciate the time here each and every week on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Again, quick reminder, over on the website, Draft Insider, I've posted 38 prospects. We just covered almost all of them here on that UCLA Indiana game. And, of course, tomorrow is going to be our mid-major small school FCS prospect report. We're going to have a slew of scouting reports from the mid-major and non-Power 4 conference. And anything else you want to put a ribbon on the show with, Russ?
I mean, hey, it wouldn't be our show without me mentioning Leeds United. And they had a big win yesterday, beating West Ham. So it's a good statement win for Leeds, moving up a few spots. So it's a good weekend. We don't have to talk NHL because my team is unfortunately a disaster waiting to happen. So it's we can move on from the NHL.
All right. Well, hey, we'll come back next week. We'll take a look at some more marquee matchups. We'll bring you the names you need to know, counting you down to the 2026 NFL Draft. Of course, destination Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Can't wait for that. Of course, the Senior Bowl invites will be going out here soon. So we'll have some All-Star Game invitations to be talking about here in the next coming weeks. And before you know it, we're going to flip that calendar over to January. It'll be draft season. Unbelievable how the season is just flying by. But he is Russell Lande. I am Ric Serritella. We thank you so much for tuning in to the weekly All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. And again, we'll be back in November to do it all again. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.